Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big questions going into Modern Warfare 3 is, will we see a similar dynamic in terms of which players are actually any good, or will we see somewhat of a changing of the guard? We expected Modern Warfare 2 to be a 2-year title for the 2023 and 2024 season. That's not the case. The game is going to change. How significant will it be changing though? That's a big question mark. Which players will benefit from some of these changes? Octane gives his thoughts on who he has as his top 5 players for the new game. Some honourable mentions as well. 3 of the OpTic players appear here, but no Shotzzy, which is definitely interesting given the change to the movement that we might expect to see. But from on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Now, first of all, this is a big talking point of Call of Duty yesterday. And I think Valorant have done this maybe. Riot Games might have something like this as well. I know that for a long time in League of Legends, you couldn't even like speak to anyone because people were just so toxic. They wouldn't even let you speak in the chat. So, you know, now they're adding Activision real-time in-game voice chat moderation in Call of Duty. AI-powered, I mean, oh my god, AI, here we go again, right? AI-powered detection will work in-game to listen and report rule-breaking issues automatically. It's live today in MW2 and Warzone in NA and expands worldwide. So, yeah, if you say something that, you know, like told someone in rank to get better and this popped up, it's interesting, right? I know people will say, oh, like this is too intrusive. I know that other games have done something like this as well in the past. You know, like if it works well as it's intended to work, then sure, it's fine. I just do wonder a little bit whether, because back in the day, I mean, some of the things that people used to say in videos, you know, a decade ago would just not be acceptable today at all in any way. Like you get cancelled immediately because some of the things that used to be said. And even, you know, like 5-6 years ago, like this clip, this famous clip from Donny Temp, like, you know, this wouldn't really be acceptable. You get done here by the voice chat. Now, of course, the pros don't really speak in voice chat in the game, but I just think there would be, you know, it'd be funny if anyone got banned for something like this, wouldn't it, from the servers for saying something maybe they shouldn't have said in the game chat itself. But yeah, I don't imagine it's going to be affecting any of the pros. It's an interesting one. I don't know if you guys think, you know, it's good or bad, I suppose. But if it's going to incentivize players to be better people, then I suppose it's going to have a positive thing. Now, just quickly this, I don't know what Standy tweeted here, but Clay replied, and it was Standy because it used to say Standy on this, and you can see Standy as a relevant person on the right-hand side. So I don't exactly know what this was, but I just wanted to mention it because we talked earlier today and even yesterday about Clay, Standy, maybe Nero, we don't really know, maybe Attach as the Los Angeles Grillers. Potential roster, if they're even still going to exist next season, we don't know. But we think that Clay and Attach is reasonable, and then the question was, who's the sub-duo going to be? And it does seem like, especially compared to, you know, Clay and Donny Temp don't have many interactions on Twitter. Clay and you know, any of the other guys on Vegas last year didn't have too many interactions on Twitter. Clay and Standy still do. They're playing, I think, still quite a bit together. So it implies that there might be a potential duo-ship there going forwards they want to explore. And they're kind of, well, running out of time maybe, running out of options, you could argue. But I still think they'll be okay for next season if we still have 12 teams in the CDL, which is not exactly a guarantee. Back in the day, of course, we used to have 5 players on a team, and it was a very different story then when, you know, it's crazy really to think about how many spots there were at the time and how many players there were in the league. It went to 4v4, many players lost their spots, and then we were like, oh, well, it'll expand to 16 teams, won't it? So it'll be fine. Of course, you know, not the case, unfortunately. This was Frosty with a crazy 4 kind of 1v5 ace or whatever it was. This kill on Vivid as well was absolutely disgusting, so I think he slides out and guns him off the head here, doesn't he? Yeah. How quick did he die, by the way, as well? Like, Infinity War are actually criminals. Before we get into what Octane has to say, though, this quickly for Drazah. Can we bring back best of 9 for majors? So this is one of the discussions that was had during, well, let's say Cold War, for example, or most certainly in Vanguard. It was best of 9s in the major grand finals. Now, the most recent titles, it was, well, best of 7, right, in MW2 grand finals, apart from the World Championship, where they did have a best of 9. Now, look, I'll be honest, as a Call of Duty fan from Europe, from the UK, I didn't mind the best of 7s, you know, like that little bit of extra, you know, that half an hour less maybe when it's 2, 3 a.m. on a Monday morning. is not too bad. So, you know, I'm kind of in favor of keeping the best of 7s, but I will say that, you know, I didn't mind the best of 9s at all. If there's enough maps to make it work, I'm kind of okay with it. It probably does over the course of a best of 9. You're more likely to get the best team winning, and I don't think you'll ever get like a massively underwhelming series, but I don't know. I don't really mind between best of 7s and best of 9s. Some would say, as Max is in the replies, like have the, you know, the semis be best of 7s. 2 best of 7s is like, you know, that would drag on too long as far as I'm concerned. 2 best of 5s is an acceptable alternative, but I don't really mind a single best of 7. My actual preferred approach is a single best of 9, but with a 1 map advantage for the winners bracket team, so it's kind of like a best of 8. So that's still my preferred approach, as they did in the grand finals of the World Championship back in 2020, but they apparently think that us fans can't understand that type of concept ever since then. So let's talk what Octane has to say. I wanted to show a little bit here. So he does a video, his top 5 players going into MW3. Now let's be honest, this is pretty much a list of the top players in MW2. So, you know, he clearly believes that there's going to be a lot of, well, players and abilities carrying over. Maybe the most surprising name mentioned was Kenny. Now, okay, you can talk about Octane's bias on this, but he really does believe that Kenny's going to be massively influential to OpTic's success next season. Maybe even more so than a guy like Shotzzy. So this is his list.
Little bias here. I'm going to go Ken, also from OpTic. My philosophy and the majority of the fans' philosophy is that you want Ken on the gun that is going to give you the highest impact, and being the flex allows you to do whatever you want. We had him on a main sub for our years on LAT, and that is just because Ken was super high impact on a sub. Comms were incredible, which is where, you know, I don't have to get into the whole role swap situation, but you guys know the backstory behind that. So putting Ken in an area to, one, enable his teammates super well, which he has said time and time again, he's trying to come into this. He really is joining this OpTic roster to facilitate a game plan, move pieces around the map, and be the person that is going to take charge in moments of disarray, if you will. So I have a ton of respect for Ken for bearing the burden of that. Kind of the theme of my honorable mentions is that all of these players are enablers. Obviously, we'll get into my top 5 as well, but I have a bunch of respect because a lot of these things aren't shown on a scoreboard. And I wanted to just give props to these players going into Modern Warfare 3 because these are the people that are going to win and lose you championships. Obviously, there's going to be, you know, your HyDras of the world who are going to go out and drop like 1.3s, but these are the reason that those players are able to drop 1.3s. So I'm looking forward to Ken seeing what he can do with a brand new OpTic roster, ton of slaying ability, and I want to see how he slots into that IGL kind of facilitator role for next season. Alrighty, guys, on to my top 5 players for Modern Warfare 3. This list is not going to be actually numbered in any order. These are just 5 players that are 100% should be on everyone's radar. Number 1, I said his name 16 times already, but it's going to be HyDra, defending MVP, defending world champion, by far and away the best player last year.
So I shared what he had to say there on Kenny, and also confirming that HyDra is, okay, he didn't order his 5 players, but he pretty much said number 1's HyDra, and it makes sense. HyDra's going to be difficult to stop. These then were the players that he mentioned. So HyDra, Scrap, aBeZy, Pred, Cell, and then honorable mentions, Dashy, Simp, Kiz, and Kenny. So pretty good list. I mean, he's got 9 players on here that he believes can be and likely will be very good going into Modern Warfare 3. Will there be any changes though? Because this doesn't look too dissimilar to the list we had from MW2, does it? And I think we see it's a relatively common phenomenon that even, let's say, last season, right, going into the new year in Modern Warfare 2, I was of the opinion that Thieves were not going to be an S-tier team. And you know, that was considered a big hot take because always how it goes, right? A team wins champs, as Thieves did. They won Major 4 last year, they won champs. Everyone's like, wow, Thieves are the best. They've got to be S tier for the new game. But it's rare that that's actually the case. And I had them maybe A tier, and it turned out Thieves were not very good at the start of last season, despite the fact that they just come off the back of winning back-to-back and winning champs. So, you know, it doesn't always transfer, is what I'm trying to say. And the top players every year, there will be some similarities, but it won't be identical, right? Whereas this list is pretty much, in terms of the top 5, the best players of the last season. Now, would I expect these players to be up there? Yes, absolutely. But even the likes of aBeZy, I mean, he had, I think he'll be up there again this new year. But he was, you know, he was pretty bad in Vanguard relative to his normal standards. He was maybe top 10, just about, maybe top 15. So, the last year he was insane again, right? So it's like, is HyDra going to be guaranteed #1 player in the game again next year? It also depends on results as well. Like, all of these players, apart from Pred, they won something in the season. HyDra won 3 events, including champs. maps and got the MVP and all that. So, you know, would Kismet be here if the team hadn't had that success? If next year Subliners win one event, even if HyDra plays as well as he did this year, is he going to be considered the best player of the season? Not necessarily. But then Pred gets in here in terms of Octane's predictions, despite the fact that he had a good season last year, but didn't do anything spectacular in terms of event wins. The player on this list of 9 that I would like most guarantee is a top 3 player next year is probably Cellium. Like, Cellium seems to be inevitable in some respects, that Cell will always be in that conversation. And yes, last year, he probably did get more kills in terms of a KD perspective than he was impactful. And there was talk about how that worked with Simp and everything. I do like the Simp pick actually here from Octane for next season, just because I think with Drazah on the team, Simp can actually get away a little bit from just being the heel kitten and doing all the dirty work. Because that's basically what Simp was last season. aBeZy was kind of like the star in some sense. Cellium was doing what Cellium does, and then, you know, dropping 1.3s. And Simp had to fill a lot of the gaps. And I think that he'll probably have to do less of that with a bit more pace in Drazah. And with 150 health, the game might be a bit more similar to Cold War. I think Simp could be really good this year. So I like that pick especially. Kismet as well as a nice one. And it's nice of Octane here to give some credit to players that don't usually get so much love, because usually the star players get the majority of the accolades. But of the players that he mentions here, right, these 9 players are spread across all of the top theoretical top 4 teams. We've got only 1 from Toronto in Scrap, 2 from the Subliners in HyDra and Kismet, 3 from FaZe, aBeZy, Cell and Simp, no Drazah here, and then 3 from OpTic in Pred, Dashy and Kenny. But no mention of Shotzzy, which I thought was pretty interesting, to be fair. I think in general, Octane obviously likes and respects Shotzzy, but I don't think he's ever thought that he was anything crazy. Like, it's pretty interesting that of the 9 players to mention, Shotzzy, you know, maybe Octane just didn't want to put like all 4 OpTic players in, and he wanted to give credit to his boy in Kenny for what he thinks he can do for the team next season. But in terms of like the best player of the year, am I putting Shotzzy or am I putting Kenny? Like, if I put together a theoretical top 15, top 10 players list for next season, is Shotzzy more likely to be there? Is Kenny more likely to be there? It's got to be Shotzzy, no, in that conversation. So it's pretty interesting that Octane leaves him out of the analysis, because you look at the top 10 players in the most recent season, you will see pretty much all the names that were mentioned there by Octane. I mean, Scrap, HyDra, Pred, obviously Cell, aBeZy. So that's the top 5. Then Dashy, obviously, is going to be in and around the ballpark. Then last year we had Simp. Now, this is in terms of rating. It doesn't mean that much, whatever, but generally you get a decent idea. Then we had Simp. Then Drazah as well. So pretty interesting that, you know, given that Kenny's Octane's boy, Drazah's maybe Octane's boy, right? I mean, they were on the same team last year. You know, he mentioned Kenny over Drazah, which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, Temp also was at an 89, but Shotzzy was here with a 90 rating. So look, I don't think Octane's analysis is wrong, but I do think, you know, it's worth thinking a little bit about how the new game might play and how important movement might be, but also just looking back, if the game does play a bit more like Cold War, I think some of the players that were really good in that game, maybe even a guy like Cammy as well, but players in maybe slightly higher time to kill could be particularly good. And at the end of the day, I think Octane is right, though, to direct his attention towards players on the top 4 theoretical teams, because at the end of the day, the players that are going to be considered the best are the players that will have won events and, you know, made grand finals, dropped big numbers in big series against other top teams. Even if you play really well on a team that doesn't win anything, then you're going to struggle a bit more, which maybe is what's going to happen to the Subliners. Like, will they win like half of the events next season? Probably not. So, you know, HyDra's chances to go back-to-back MVP will be limited if they can't win as much as they did this year, even if HyDra is equally as good next season. So that's kind of, you know, what I might think to say. And I mean, look, for example, Shotzzy was doing this type of stuff last night on MW2, and MW3, we think the movement's going to be even faster, even crazier, and he might have more of this stuff in his locker as well. So I would certainly put Shotzzy in my conversation for, you know, candidates for MVP or whatever you want to say. I mean, this poor guy, man, has got absolutely clowned on to end out the video, but very much intrigued your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. I'll just give you one final face morph here to close out the video from Kennedy. So, I mean, I think this is Vivid's body and his hair and his ear, but I don't know. And then the bottom part of the face, I really can't tell. It looks a little bit like if you look at this one real quick. So Drazah's, you see how it's like, just it's a picture, right? So people can look different in different pictures, but I'm just trying to analyze across the different pictures as to whether this could be like Drazah and Vivid. I don't really know who that is on the face. I struggle with this quite a lot. So it's quite interesting. I don't know. Enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.